Okay, let's talk about what is without a doubt the hardest working and probably most mysterious appliance in your entire home, your HVAC system. It's this silent hero that keeps you cool, keeps you warm. But the moment it fails, oh, it becomes a full-blown crisis.
So let's just jump right in with a scenario that, let's be honest, we all have nightmares about. Picture this. It's the absolute peak of summer, a brutal heat wave, and then nothing, just silence. The cool air's gone, the heat starts pouring in. That's not just an inconvenience, right? That can be a real emergency. So what's the game plan? Well, that's exactly what we're going to figure out today.
To really understand your system, you first have to get what it's up against. It's not just sitting out there humming along. It is fighting a constant, hidden war against the elements every single day just to keep your home comfortable.
And you can really see this war in action when you compare a normal climate to an extreme one, like the Texas Gulf Coast. I mean, the difference is just night and day. In a typical spot, your AC might run hard for, 3 or 4 months? But down there, where it's over 70% humidity almost all year, that thing is running for 8, 9, even 10 months straight. All that moisture, it's a breeding ground for mold and algae. And get this, even the ground itself, that shifting clay soil, is literally trying to rip your ductwork apart. It's a nonstop assault.
And all that constant fighting, it leads to some very real and very expensive damage. We're not just talking about a little wear and tear, we're talking about total system failure. The compressor, that's the heart of your AC, it just burns out from being overworked. Those vital drain lines get clogged with gunk, which can back up and cause water damage inside your house. You could even get a frozen evaporator coil, which just shuts the whole operation down, probably on the hottest day of the year. Every single one of these is a huge, costly mess.
So, how do you know if your system is losing the battle? The good news is it doesn't just die silently. It actually sends out distress signals, little cries for help. You just have to learn how to spot them before it's too late.
Okay, the first and probably most common sign is weak airflow. You put your hand up to a vent and you're barely feeling a trickle of air. That is a major red flag. Now, best case scenario, it's just a dirty, clogged air filter. That's an easy fix, you can do that yourself. But it could also be a sign of something way bigger, like your blower motor is on its last legs. Either way, it's telling you it's struggling.
Next up, trust your nose. Seriously, if you start to notice this musty, kind of mildewy smell coming out of your vents, that's a huge clue that there's probably mold growing somewhere in the system, thanks to all that humidity we were talking about. But a burning smell? Oh, that's different. That could be an electrical issue, and that's not something you mess with. You call a pro immediately.
Your wallet can also be a pretty good detective here. If you open your electricity bill and see a sudden, crazy spike that you can't explain, that often means your HVAC is having to work way harder just to keep the same temperature. That inefficiency is a classic symptom that parts are wearing out, or maybe you've got something like a refrigerant leak.
And finally, there's this weird thing that pros call short cycling. This is when your AC kicks on, runs for just a couple of minutes, then shuts off. Then a few minutes later, it kicks on again, then shuts off. It just keeps doing that over and over. Not only does that waste a ton of energy, but it puts a massive amount of strain on the most expensive part, the compressor. So if you hear that happening, it's a serious sign that something is wrong.
Okay, so you've spotted one of these problems. Now comes the big, dreaded question. Do you pay to get it fixed, or is it time to replace the whole thing? This is a tough one, but there's actually a really simple rule of thumb that can help you make a smart decision instead of just guessing.
It's called the $5,000 rule, and it is so simple, it's brilliant. Here's how it works. You take the age of your system in years, and you multiply it by the estimated cost of the repair. If that number comes out to more than $5,000, it's a really strong sign that you're better off putting your money towards a new system instead of just patching up an old one that's on its way out anyway.
And the calculation could not be easier. First, figure out how old your unit is. You can usually find the date on a label on the outdoor unit. Second, get a real quote for the repair cost from a technician. And third, you just multiply them. Age of the unit times the cost of the repair. That's it. That's your number.
So let's run through a quick example so you can see it in action. Let's say your AC is 12 years old, and the tech tells you it's going to be a $500 repair. All right, so you multiply 12 years by $500, and you get $6,000. Since $6,000 is obviously more than $5,000, the rule is telling you that replacement is probably the smarter financial move here. It's all about avoiding that money pit.
So, whether you land on repairing or replacing, you're going to need professional help. But how do you find someone you can actually trust with one of the most expensive and important systems in your home? So for this last bit, let's talk about what to look for when you're choosing your HVAC hero.
Look, A real pro follows a clear process. They don't just show up and guess. First, they diagnose. They do a thorough inspection, they ask you questions, they use their tools. Then, they give you a clear, written quote up front before they start any work. No surprises. As they do the repair, they should be able to explain what they're doing. And most important, when they're done, they test the whole system to make sure they actually fixed the problem. So when you're vetting companies, this right here is your checklist. This is what separates the real pros from the rest. Are their techs certified? Do they give you that upfront pricing we just talked about? If you're getting a new system, ask if they pull permits and if they do something called a manual J load calculation. That's a fancy way of saying they do the math to figure out the exact right size unit for your house, instead of just guessing based on square footage. These details really matter.
So we'll end on this thought. Your HVAC system, it's working around the clock, fighting that hidden war just to keep you and your family safe and comfortable. The real question is, are you doing your part to protect it too?